Now, in about 4 months, no, 3 months, we're a season away from the 10th anniversary of this short movie, which is part of the ABCs of Death 2. There's actually three sets of deaths. There's ABCs of Death 1, 2, and 2.5, which I'll look at later on. Champions of Zorb. This is W is for Wish. And I wanted to talk about this because I really felt like I needed to do this. So sit back and enjoy my commentary of this. I will not be playing this movie because I get copyright claimed or I'll get blocked. So um, we're gonna do a slideshow and I'm gonna talk about why this particular welcome to Goth Metal Lore, for those of you in case I forgot. We're gonna talk about why it is this little movie. It's like 3.5 minutes long. Why is it so important to me? Why do I feel its relevance? Now, a long time ago, I was a kid once, and I had a childhood. And my childhood at the beginning was filled with stuffed animals, dolls, mobiles. Like when you're in a crib, you get the mobile, and you had stuffed animals. You had Fisher Price toys, and Fisher Price toys was my thing. And then at some point, I had a Fisher Price castle with the metal springy rubber flag at the top of it, and a trap door. And I had a Fisher Price typewriter, a Fisher Price clock, a Fisher Price what are those? What is it, like the vacuum, the little popping balls, the color balls? Fisher Price cash register, Fisher Price telephone. I think a lot of Fisher Price toys. And at some point, I went for Fisher Price toys. I graduated to Masters of the Universe toys from the early 80s. I'm going to say 82 or 83, I got them. I think as soon as the cartoon came out. Or we probably went to a KB Toys or Toys R Us and saw it. So here we see these two kids, and they're playing with the champions of Zord. There's Prince Cassio, there's Fantasy Man, of course, and then there's the bad guy. I forgot the bad guy's name. I'm sure he's relevant. And this is the big play set. I don't know if they got to keep this. I hope they did. I hope one of them got to keep the play set. Because it's like you're not going to use it. You're not going to see it again, right? So, and this is their whole world. And for me, Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain, He-Man, Skeletor, the Horde, Modulok, Snake Man, that was my world. And so here we have Prince Cassio going up against the. This was it. This was all that I cared about. My older sister, who was born in '71, she had like 12-inch dolls, like not Barbie, like fake Barbie and Ken dolls. And my three sisters inherited a big old wooden dollhouse that my dad put together. That's when my dad was more enthusiastic about doing things for his kids, but he probably wasn't too happy about making it. He made also a giant, a sort of a life-sized engine car so that we would play outside. We had a jungle gym, like a dodecahedron metal jungle gym thing, in a wooden train, a wooden engine. And then we had a wooden dollhouse, and my sister would have an Atari 2600 along with Intellivision, Coleco, electronic handheld things, and that Pressman Hangman thing that I told you about, where you see the little window and all that. But that was our world. Our world. We're just so naive. Everything was cool, right? Everything was about this. I should have known his name was Zorb. Anyway, Zorb. So there's Fantasy Man. There's the top of the tower, Casio, and all that. So that's all I cared about was my Saturday morning cartoons and my action figures, and life was fine, right? I got into Garfield the cat comic strips too. I still had to wear a special ed helmet. Yep, I think I've talked about this before. I had to wear a special ed helmet, a yellow one from kindergarten, from preschool, nursery school, kindergarten to up until the third grade. But that was so difficult for me. I could not fit in with other kids if I fucking tried, and that was hard. But no, it's fine. I didn't have to worry about being social. I went home to my toys. That's all that mattered. This guy has a whole new meaning, and yeah, I loved collecting all those figures. I kind of sensed there were problems in my family. Now, up until the late 80s, I never really saw that there was a problem, but I knew I somehow had a sixth sense because you don't reach the age of reason until you're 7 years old. Okay, before you're 7 years old, everything is fantasy or reality. You don't know what's what. You don't know what's real, what's fake. If Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy are about as tangible as the shoes on your feet. You just don't. You don't know. You don't think about it. You don't care. Why would you care? So that's where I was thinking at the time. I just didn't. I didn't want to think about anything else. And I used to mess with my brother because he was blind and because he was slow in the mind. And that's a regret that I have to live with for the rest of my life. And that was difficult. And we used to get into fights because I would pick on him. I always sensed, besides the fact that my sisters would, I remember seeing one time my dad would stomp the house like he was pissed. My oldest sister was on the floor crying for whatever reason. My other two sisters had to help her clean the house. I don't know what was going on. And I don't care. At that point, I was just like that was back in the early to mid 80s. Okay. My sisters were still young and stupid and gullible and vulnerable to things. Okay. Um, they didn't grasp reality. And I don't know what their problem. I was just like I was immune from that because I was still a child. My father was not angry with me yet. Things were okay. Everything was great. I could live in my fantasy world. I could, do some stories on my tape recorder because I got a tape recorder one time when I was like 7 or 8 years old. Oh, everything was great. Nothing was wrong. Everything was fine. I played a little bit of my sister's Atari 26. One of my youngest sister, her Atari 2600. Okay, but there was yelling and screaming from my dad to my sisters all the time, like in the background. And when you're a kid, like I said, when you're a kid from age 0 to 7, you don't think about that. You don't care. At some point, my brother was getting sick. Now, I didn't think about my life being complicated when I was in nursery school. My mother told me that I could not make friends for whatever reason. I wore suits, like formal attire for some reason. That was probably a mistake, wearing formal attire but having a yellow special ed helmet on your head. My brother also wore a helmet because we had hemophilia, we had bleeding disorders, and that was tough. But all through first and second grade, I didn't think about it. Then the third grade came, and then the fourth. Around that time, my brother got sick. Didn't know why. My mom would say pneumonia. Okay, but he looked not good. His bones started to thin out. He had no almost no meat on his bones. He looked very bony, and would be in the hospital every week. He would be at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles every week, and I had no fucking clue what was going on. I was a kid being dumb. I didn't know anything. Now, I think he did come home one time, and then we had a whole weekend with him back in 1986. I still remember. I think it was early. No, it was early 86. I think it was the spring of 86 that we went to San Francisco for about a 3-day weekend. And we got some pretzels. We drove all the way to San Francisco. We did not take a plane. That was the one time that I think we spent as a family, my parents, my brother, and me. No sisters, nobody else. And there was no problems with us. We were happy to be there. I don't think there was ever a time where we were fighting with each other. Pretty sure that it was the fact that we were in a new environment and we just didn't adjust to it, and we didn't pull our usual bullshit. I think that was what kind of, I think being in a new place, like going to San Francisco to a kid is like going to Europe as a 20-year-old, or going to Mars in your 30s or 40s. It's just you're not used to that. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what to expect. So it did humble me to be somewhere else. But after that, he got sick, and we only had him over for the weekend, for like a weekend in late 86. Now, right around this time, because this movie is based on kind of Masters of the Universe and Power Lords and Brave Star and Conan the Barbarian, but it's more about the toys of Masters of the Universe: He-Man, Skeletor, Tila, Man at Arms, Stratos, Merman, Beastman, Evil Lyn. And Masters of the Universe started out strong in 81, 82, right? And my brother Sebastian was 6 years old, I was four. And we were still dumb kids being dumb because for us, what parents perceive kids' lives to be short, we perceived our lives to be long. 5 minutes to a child is like 5 seconds to an adult. It's just how it is. So it's a long time for us. And we just didn't, we saw no end to our tunnel. We were like having fun being dumb kids and messing with each other. Right around that time, that's when, uh, around the time that my brother was going to the hospital, Masters of the Universe was kind of going through a drought of sales. Now, I think that's when the Eternia playset was coming in, and that was in limited sets. You had to hunt that down. If you were lucky, you got a hold of it. But the Eternia playset was to be hunted down. You had to go find it. Uh, you had first the He-Man and Skeletor, then you had the different versions of He-Man and Skeletor. You had Battle Armor He-Man, Battle Armor Skeletor, Thunder Punch He-Man, Dragon Blaster Skeletor, Thunder was it Flying Fist He-Man and Terror Claw Skeletor, and there was Laser Light He-Man. And there were so many good guys and bad guys. Then came the Horde, then came the Snake Men, and all these big accessories like Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain and the Fright Zone and the Slime Pit. The Slime Pit was the one thing my parents never got me. They didn't want to give me that. This was all mess. They refused to get me that one. Nope. That was the one I kind of wanted, but never got. And then there was the Eternia, which I never knew about. I think maybe if I went to Toy Town, which was in like what was it, Alhambra years ago? Maybe I would have seen it. I keep thinking about that. Toy Town's gone. It was gone in the early '90s. I still remember the GI Joe Street Fighter figures that were still there. Oh, what a time! The last time I think I saw anything that like when Toy Town was still there was with the Ninja Turtles 1990 movie, the action figures, and that was still at Toys R Us. But Masters of the Universe was on a decline. My brother was on a health decline. And it was the beginnings of things. And right around that time, my father was more of a presence in my schoolwork. And he just had a spoil the rod, spare the rod, spoil the child. And um, when I didn't get good grades in school, and one of the reasons I didn't get good grades in school because I was a fucking incel. I had nobody. At 8 years old, who was I going to be friends with? And I just felt because my father at that time was going to work at, he would leave the house around 4 or 5 and get to work because he would have to go across freeways and he would go to like, not Culver City, but like Dominguez Hills, near Dominguez Hills. So he would be away from us. And he was an inspector, much like Homer Simpson goes, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like he would check all the needles and make sure the radioactive levels were low. He would do this for engines. And he would be gone for hours until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. But he made the man smoked a lot and drank a lot. And he made the time to give me a paddling if I didn't get good grades. So if I didn't get A's or B's, if I got mostly D's or F's, yeah, I would get a paddling. Now, at the time, it seemed fine. That this always reminds me of what is it? The creature in the dragon's lair. So my dad would smack my ass good if I got bad grades. The problem with that is that that's all he would do. And everything he did to teach me to be better was out of anger and rage. And like, why is he failing school? He should not be failing school. He's going to do better, or I'm going to settle his hash. I'm going to settle him good. Like, that was his attitude. Like, he put the fear of God. Okay. In some ways, when you paddled your kids way back then, that was for their own good. The problem was, like, he was an asshole about every fucking thing, and my mom just didn't give a fuck. That was the problem. And I used to dislike my brother back then because it's like he got all the attention, but my mom made excuses for him to a point where it's like, look, he's blind and he can't understand right from wrong. Okay, it's not his fault. But it was like every time I was the guilty person and he was innocent. Now, I blamed him for it because, of course, if you're the jealous brother and you're a kid, you're not going to see it any other way. There's no way you could see it any other way. But as I got older, I had to know better, and I had to realize, oh, the problem wasn't him, the problem was the rest of my damn family. So there were three things happening, in simultaneous. My brother in the hospital, who was dying actually more of AIDS than pneumonia. So he was dying of AIDS. His body was thinning out. And what happened was, if I have explained this, but I'll explain it again. We have hemophilia severe type A. I had hepatitis C for years. My brother got AIDS because the human blood that was transferred to us would be infected with all kinds of shit. It's like, oh, human blood? Oh, it matches what we need? Okay, that's fine. No, we don't need, that's fine. We don't need to do anything else. But people were getting fucking AIDS and all kinds of gifts. HIV positive, STDs, XYZ, and also hepatitis. So I got one of those. My brother got AIDS, and there was nothing that once you got AIDS back in the 80s, that was a fucking death sentence. You were gone. You were going to die. There was nothing else you could do. So he was dying. My father was using the paddle on me, and he was pulling my ears, beating the shit out of me every once in a while. And if I looked at him the wrong way, like, what? What'd you say to me? Like, what'd you say? You got a problem? Like, that was his attitude. And the Masters of the Universe toys were on a decline to where Mattel was like, we could do Hero, or we could do like the prequel to Masters of the Universe if Tila and Adam have a child, right? But they decided to cancel the whole Hero pre-Turnia stuff and say, fuck this, we're not going to do that. And then they went with the space idea. Wasn't as good. That was back in 1989. So they kind of just dismissed it for something else. They wanted to go with the space idea. And that's how it went. We all know the story of that. But everything was changing for me. I had to realize, oh yeah, my time of being a kid is fucking over. Like, this is it. I lost my brother. And my father was giving me a hard time than usual. And he was trying to pressure me to eat my food every 5 seconds, and blaming Sebastian's death on me without actually saying it out loud. It's not like he said, it's your fault, he's dead. He basically said, well, your brother's dead, and I'll be dead if I'm going to lose you as well. So you're mistreating my ass. You never mistreated Sebastian, but you're mistreating me again and again and again. For the fucking how many fucking times are you going to keep doing that to me? Find any excuse to beat up your kid. Oh, it's for his own good. Oh, it's the COVID. We got to beat the shit out of him. It's like some reason. And after how many decades, you know how many times I thought about murdering my father, like, or just beating the shit out of him until I saw the look of fear in his eyes, like, for like the last 20 years after he died. You don't know how long. So my brother died. My parents sued for money. They got $1,000 at least in a class action lawsuit. And I had to grow up. It was worse when I went to an all-boys school for Catholics. It was worse just dealing with bad grades and him trying to hit me. My cousin Gabriel was being the same way. Everybody was being an asshole with me. And I don't even know why. Does it even matter? My innocence was gone. My innocence was gone. And that's the kind of thing that grows you up. I've lost a lot of people in my family now. And that's why I try not to take people for granted, because you never know what's going to happen to them tomorrow or next week or next year. You don't know. You think that they're always going to be there, and they're not going to always be there. Um, Masters of the Universe wasn't even the same after that. It was a shell of what it was. Now, the odd thing was when it came back in 2002. I mean, not the 1989 space era. I mean, the real comeback. I mean, Masters of the Universe updated back in 2002. Uh, that was around the time my father had passed away, and it's odd that it would. Of course, it came back for a short time. It only lasted about a year or two before Mattel canceled it. And that was the beginning of things. I think right around that time when Masters of the Universe was going out the door in 2004, my sister and I got into a huge fight. And we never spoke to each other ever again because she was full of shit, and she still is. Um, Things were changing again. And I was growing up more and more and more. And a lot of my innocence is gone. I stopped believing in things. I stopped believing in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and the ideal girl of my dreams. I stopped believing in that. Yeah, I like, going back to let's go back to the movie for a moment because we get lost in this stuff. I like that you got the pervert, you got the pedo fantasy man at the end of this because it's a wake up call for me, right? So my father had died right around the time He-Man and Skeletor came back. I didn't get my brother back. I tried to, a few years later, I tried to volunteer at the Braille Institute, and they shut me down twice. Message received. Um, I get it. Y'all don't want me there, but I wasn't there to it wasn't there to laugh at you or to for peace of mind. It was because I wanted to do something for my brother to make up for the way I treated him. That's why I tried to volunteer there. I wanted to pay my respects in the best way I could, which was to help others like him, even in a small way that I wasn't even getting paid, but that was fine. That's the whole point of it. But they shunned me out. I tried to go on his birthday. I think it was, let me think. I think it was 2016 that I tried to go on his 40th birthday. I went down to the Braille Institute to try to visit. You have to have an appointment. They don't let you walk around there. And the lady there had a very cunty attitude. Hey, you're a blind cunt, but you're still a cunt. I'm not going to feel bad for you because you're handicapped, because I'm also handicapped. So shut the fuck up, anyone who has a problem with me right now. You too, Fantasy Man. Yeah, this is the ending to it. It's such a poetic thing there. Yeah. Oh my God. We went from a happy commercial to this, but that's kind of how everybody goes through their life. What is it Joey Diaz says? After 11 years old, you take off the hat with the fucking propeller, and that's it with the fucking superhero movies, right? But there's some superhero movies I like. And this is behind the scenes stuff where they're putting together all the stuff, all the wings. And now we come upon, the third version of Masters, not counting Revelation or Revolution, right? We come upon Masters of the Universe, the CGI cartoon. I'll tell you what, when Mattel canceled the toy set, especially what they did with Moss Man, that's when I was done with Mattel. I was pretty much like, fuck this. Like, you can't just do this shit. Like, why would you do that? Why would you cancel the season? They didn't even give it a chance. They canceled after 3 seasons. My father's been dead for about 22 years. My brother's been gone for 37 years. So, and I've lost other family members since that time. There's the kid getting burned. In short, that's what this means to me, is that when I see Champions of Zorb, I will think about when my childhood changed forever. I will think about all the things that have happened. I will say that when I first posted on YouTube back in 2015, I was posting my stories. I was a completely different person from what you hear right now, what you may see. But I was making the toys. But yeah, I don't know does this movie have the same meaning for you? Take a watch. It's 10 years later. I think it's September 9th or 19th is the anniversary. 10th anniversary. There's Zorb himself. So happy anniversary, ABCs of Death 2. More importantly, but this is probably my favorite movie of all of them. Until next time, I like it when you all visit me, but I love it when you return. And return to the Zorb.